So I'm just going to quickly go through a bit of the study design to put the data in context before you hear some of the early findings. So I just wanted to tell you about the artwork that was drawn by a young person in out-of-home care, and that's what we use to brand all our study materials. So when we're out in the field, carers and caseworkers can identify the study. I'd just like to pay my respects to Aboriginal elders past and present, and also extend respect to Aboriginal children and young people who are the future elders. And I think it's important when we're doing out-of-home care, research and policy work that we remember the stolen generations and how some policies do not lead to good outcomes. So I'm just going to quickly go through the study design, the data collection and data analysis. So this study started in 2010 and it's funded and led by the New South Wales Department of Family and Community Services, and we've partnered with Judy Cashmore, Paul Del Fabro, Alan Katz, Fred Wilson and the Australian Institute of Family Studies. So we're very lucky to have these expert researchers working with us on this study. And we also have iView, who's doing the independent data collection, so the children and the carers feel confident that they can tell their stories without it going back to facts. I also just want to say the research team are here today, so Sharon Burke, Albert Joe, Joanna Watson and Jessica Stewart. So just to give you a good idea about the study, I thought the conceptual framework might be a good way to show you. So when we were designing the study, we did a literature review just to find out all the things we knew about factors that influenced outcomes. So the study is really looking at children's development, which is the pale blue circle. So we're looking at children's language development, physical health and social-emotional well-being. And we want to know what factors influence children's development in out-of-home care over time. So the literature says that the service system, certain things in the service system do seem to influence children's outcomes, and those are in the outer circle, which is family contact, services and supports, relationships with workers, relationships with carers, and placement type and carer characteristics. And a lot of those things will be talked about today. And then children's experiences in out-of-home care also influence their outcomes. Things like safety in care, stability, felt security, family contact, identity, relationships with peers, and participation in decision making. And of course, kids come into care with their own characteristics. So kids come into care, that's the inner circle, which kids come in at different ages into out-of-home care, which could influence their outcomes. They've got their own temperament, they've got child protection histories, and cultural background and gender. So all these things influence outcomes. We just want to, from this study, find out what are the big things that influence children's outcomes, so we can focus on the things that really change a child's well-being. So this study is the largest study, longitudinal study of out-of-home care in Australia, and we say that because it's large in terms of its sample size and also the data sources. So our study cohort is all children who entered care on interim orders between May 10 and October 11, an 18-month period, all across New South Wales. So they came into care on interim orders, and then we have another cohort of those who went on to final orders. So then we have a comparison group, kids who went on to interim orders and went home, those that came in on final orders. And the kids that came in on final orders, we contacted every single carer, so 2,828 if we could, and invited them to be part of the face-to-face interviews. And we're currently in the interview cohort. We've done 3 waves of data collection with 18-month to 24-month intervals. And we've just finished the 3rd wave, and we've got over 1,000 children and carers in every wave of data collection. So the data sources, you can see for the bigger group, the 4,126, we're using administrative data. So with fax records, we have child protection data and out-of-home care placements. And then the data custodians from health, education, justice, and the Australian Early Development Census have also given us permission to link the children's records. And then for the kids on final orders in the interview cohort, we're doing in-depth interviews with children and their carers, and also we're doing online surveys with caseworkers and teachers. I'll just quickly tell you what questions we ask, and then I'll hand over to the presenters. So with children, we do direct assessments of their language. So children 3 and up complete the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test looking at language skills. For 6 to 16-year-olds, we do the matrix reasoning, which looks at their problem-solving abilities. And then we do an activity on a checkerboard where we ask children to place themselves and the people that they're living with, and then the people that they're not living with, in terms of how close they feel to them. And we do that with children 7 and up. So the Peabody and the matrix reasoning are gold standard measures. And then we also, children 7 and up, we do a short interview with them, and they're the kind of topics that we cover. So school and friends, health, behaviour, questions about where they're living, their casework support. And then there's a space where they can leave open-ended questions or comments if they want to. So every child participating in this study gets $20 to $30 gift voucher for their time and contribution to the study. And they get to answer the questions on an iPad, which has an audio recording, so they can go off and do it in privacy, or they can get support from an interviewer if they wish. So the carers have quite a long, in-depth interview, and we ask them questions about the child and also questions about themselves and their household. So just quickly, some of the topics covered are, for the child, about their health, their behaviours, their cognitive development, the child's temperament. We ask about the family activities that happen in the house. We talk about school and work for the older children. We ask what services the kids access, and if they can't access services, why not? And then we talk about birth, family contact and relationships. And then questions about the carers. We ask about their relationship with the child and their parenting style. We ask them what their experience is as a carer and what training they receive, their informal support networks, casework support, and their satisfaction being a carer. And then we ask them some questions about their physical health and mental health. And then we do quite a detailed household grid, so we find out who's living in that household. Are kids placed with their siblings, with other foster children, with the carer's own children. We find out ages, gender, and we also ask about income and work for the carers, and we also ask about the neighbourhood, about social cohesion. So that's the study in a nutshell. So the progress, like I said, we've completed 3 waves of data collection, and we're starting the 4th wave in around October, November. We're continuing the teacher survey, and we've got the record linkage to health, education, juvenile justice and the AEDC. And today, so the aim is that by the end of the year we'll have quality assured 3 waves of data, which is fantastic, so we can start our longitudinal analysis, stored in a secure research environment, so we can have more analysts accessing the data to answer all the questions. And then we can see if children are improving over time, declining or staying the same, and what are the factors that are influencing those differences. So we run a whole lot of consultations like this with people to find out what are your policy questions, and just to try and see if we can answer them with the data we've collected. So the study's going to 2020, so we'll have 10 years, 10 years of the child's life, and we might get more funding, we'll see. So just one thing to note when you're hearing the results, the sample is first time entries to care. So the sample is quite young because most kids enter care at younger ages, and we're going to follow them growing up in care. So there's only not that many older children in our sample.